Okay, good afternoon. Like Adrian said, my name is Suzanne Briere. I work here in Region 2. I'm the Construction Safety Coordinator, amongst other things. But for you all today, I am the Construction Safety Coordinator. That's my information. I don't know if that made it into the slides that you printed out, but it is there if you need it. So, we're going to talk about work zone traffic control. Obviously, traffic control is essential for both safety of the workers and the traveling public, workers being everybody, not just DOT employees, but also the contractor's employees. Standard sheets and other guidelines are presented along with sound engineering judgment. We've got lots of information, we've got lots of references, but let's not throw common sense out the window, okay? Sometimes what looks good on paper just doesn't work in the field, and I think most of us in here have seen that. Here again are some of our resources, lots of them. We'll go over these at the end. I've got some examples, and I also have a list of links so that you can get these resources. This is from the standard sheets. This is 61911. We're going to go back to this again and again and again. This is a real popular sheet. There's a lot of information on there. We're going to keep referencing it. Work zone intrusions, just what it sounds like. A vehicle is going to enter our work zone or our work area, and in this particular example, it's striking an attenuator vehicle. If something like this should happen on your job, it needs to be reported. It is an accident. We're going to talk about CIR a little bit. That's the Construction Incident Reporting System. I don't know the level of how many years in the group, you know, if you've been here for 20 years and you're familiar with CARP, or if you've just started and all you know is CIR. But that is our incident reporting program. We'll talk a little bit more about that in a minute, too. Workplace violence. Doesn't really sound like it has a place in work zone traffic control, but it does. Excuse me. So, any act or threat of violence by project personnel or traveling public that inflicts or attempts to inflict physical or psychological harm. So basically, workplace violence is going to cover employees, contractor employees, DOT employees, traveling public, somebody walking down the street. If somebody invades your space, if they bully you, if they throw something at you, if they hit you, if anything happens, basically, it's workplace violence. And this is workplace in the work zone, not like in the building. That's a little bit different. Note the 3 bullets at the bottom. Don't escalate the situation. If it's safe, you know, get as much information as you can, license plate, description, things like that, and be willing to follow through. In Region 2, we kind of have a preference that if something should happen, that we have you call the state troopers. We seem to get a little bit better response. We seem to get a little bit more cooperation, coordination with the troopers than sometimes, not always, with the local, you know, municipal type PD. So here in Region 2, we do ask that you call the troopers. Work durations: long-term, intermediate term, short duration, and mobile. We're going to talk about those. So, long-term stationary, yes. Long-term stationary. This is going to be more than 3 days, more than 3 consecutive days in one location. Intermediate term, also stationary. This is up to 3 days in one location, or night work lasting more than an hour. And if I'm going too fast, please let me know. But I think you're probably glazing over just a little bit now at 3:07, and we'll get you out and get you going. And I keep putting these papers aside, and I don't mean to. Short term. Short term is also stationary. Daytime work occupies the location for more than an hour. So something like guide rail repair, something along that line. And short duration is going to be work that occupies a location for up to an hour. Again, daytime work. Mobile work, work that moves continuously or intermittently. This is going to provide the least amount of traffic control and the least amount of safety, because typically this is used for something like it implies, that it's moving and you're not at a particular location typically for more than 15 minutes. But with any of these examples, depending on the nature of the work and what's going on, it may change. So keep that in mind. Typically, if it does change, it's going to be decided upon by probably, here at least in Region 2, it would be our traffic department, our friends in traffic, or the construction supervisor, or the EIC, a combination of those folks. So, guess what? 61911. This is where the work duration tables are, and this is where we're going to get that information. Here's all the things that we just talked about: long-term, intermediate, short duration, and mobile. Portable variable message systems. The information is here. Need to be 7 feet high. Needs to be placed correctly. Provide real-time information. All the lights are working. Concise messages, and a maximum of 2 panels. Now on this one, I don't know where this was taken. You see it's in the middle of the sidewalk. I can't comment on that, only to say that there may be no other place to put it. That's not ideal, but there may be no other place to put it. If it does end up in the middle of the sidewalk, we need to keep in mind that we need to direct pedestrian traffic. We need to have a detour for the pedestrians noted because of that. Components of a work zone: advance warning, transition, activity, and termination. And that's what these are here. We're going to go through each of them. So, the advance warning area, this is going to tell the traffic what to expect, and it's going to include these signs: advance warning, the shoulder taper, and the arrow panel. And that's the section here. Here's your work. Advance warning signs. I keep doing that. Real-time signing, super important. Needs to be real-time. If you got stuff going on, the signs go up. If you don't, they come down. Common sense. So here we are. These are coming out of the MUTCD, and this is going to give effective direction to the traveling public. They're going to fulfill a need, get their attention, hopefully convey a nice, clear, simple meaning so everybody understands it, hopefully get their respect, and give them adequate time for a proper response. And like I said, excuse me, real-time signing. And these are the three signs, 3-step process. Here's a typical series. The countdown, the signing countdown has changed a little bit through the years. It currently is now down to the 3 signs. They call it the ABC signs, and that's what this is. That's what this is showing. The first states what's ahead. The second is telling the driver what to expect, and then the third is, actually what's happening. On this particular one, again, it talks about the ABC distances, which we'll get into next. And I know you're wondering, okay, Suzanne, you're saying that there's 3 signs, but where's this coming from? This is coming from a different place, but that needs to be there also. We talk about that a little bit later. It's not considered part of the 3-sign series. Advanced warning signs. This is where those ABC distances come from. This is just an example of a sign layout on an interstate. Short term, intermediate term, stationary on a multi-lane divided highway. That's this typical. So here's your road work ahead. That's coming from here. There's your sign. This one's next. That's your right lane closed with your distances. Here's your legend. This is the YY. There's your distance, where you are in comparison to the work. And then there's your distance for your final sign, right here. This is showing, obviously, what's acceptable, marginal, and unacceptable. This is a great little thing. When we have TCIs come in, again, and I'm sorry to keep referring to Region 2, but that's where I am. I'm not sure what everyone else does. We have this pamphlet, American Traffic Safety Services Association, that we order, and I give this to the seasonals when they come on. And basically, it's a great reference to what's good, what looks good, what doesn't look good, what's acceptable, and you say, hey, Mr. Contractor, that's what you've got. We need them to look like this, please. That's where that's coming from. ATSSA quality guidelines. It's a great little pamphlet. You should, if you don't already, you may already have them. But if you don't already, you should have your region order them. It's a little clutter. Less is more. No one would be able to figure out what was going on there. They wouldn't have time to read them. Signs have to be the correct shape and legend. No cutting, no pasting, no stacking. None of that is allowed. If you're going to have an issue like this where it's on the median barrier, you have to use either the smaller sign or a rectangular sign. If you've got these type of signs, the font needs to match and the color needs to match, and they need to adhere really well, and this is just not acceptable. We can't have them stacked on top of the other. I keep going ahead of myself. Pages are out of order. Alrighty then. So here we are. Signs and height and lateral locations of the signs and the typical applications. From the bottom of the sign to the pavement, a little bit different with rural, how far it can be height-wise and offset between urban and rural. And again, this is coming out of the MUTCD. Temporary sign supports. Everyone chuckles at that. That is not the way to do it. Placement. If you can, you know, get them off the shoulder a little bit more or on the other side of the barrier if possible. You know, set them up properly. This one doesn't look too awful. It's kind of close. This one, it's got a pretty good tilt to try and straighten that up a little bit. Transition area. I'm sorry, I need to get caught up with my slides. All right, this is the second component in the work zone, the transition area here. Whoops, back up. Back up. There we go. Transition area is here. This is where we're going to move traffic out of its normal path. And that's where your taper is. Types of taper. Merging taper here, when the lane is closed, and we have to tell people where to go. We're going to move them over into that other lane. Shifting taper is here. Lateral shift, but no reduction in the number of lanes. We still have 2 lanes, but we're just going to move them over a little bit and then bring them right back. And then a shoulder taper down here on the bottom, if you can see that, is when the shoulder is actually closed. Downstream taper, again, this is when we're going to bring them back. The work's done, we're past it, we're going to get them back into the regular flow. Types of tapers. 1 lane, 2-way, 100 feet max. Whoop. You can see here, this is where our work is. Occupies part of a 2-way roadway. So we're going to use flaggers. Taper length. Yes, 6/19/11. That's just where that's coming from. This just shows a picture of a taper. What they wanted to show here was the arrow board to make you realize that, you know, we need to have this taper in place. The arrow board needs to be good. It needs to be visible. Great sight distance. People are, you know, so people can know what's coming. Arrow panel. Required for all lane closures where there are 2 or more travel lanes in one direction and the posted speed limit equals or exceeds 40 miles an hour. Maximize sight distance. We talked about that. Visible at 1 mile and legible at a half a mile. Get it off, you know, get it off the road as far as we can on the shoulder, but near the beginning of the taper. Should never be used on a 2-lane or a 2-way road. There's just a couple of pictures. So this is what we want. We want to see that way down there. We want to know what's coming. Third component of a work zone is the activity area. So that's where our work's actually happening. Set aside for the actual work, the workers, the equipment, the vehicles, and material storage. And it's including these 3 things: the buffer space, the roll-ahead distance, and the work. And there's our buffer space. This is what dictates that. Pre-construction. No personnel, no nothing should be in that buffer space. So here we are. Again, that's your buffer space. The only thing that should be in here is the attenuator vehicles. If anything's going to get hit, it should be them. Nobody should be working in here. There's another picture of the buffer space. Shadow and barrier vehicles. This is a shadow vehicle. Shadow vehicles use the arrow. Barrier vehicles use the panel with just the 4 corners lit. This is how we figure out how to use them. Guess where this is coming from? Yes. Good answer. 61911. So these two tables, barrier, shadow vehicle, again, what's your lane closure? What are you on? Are you on a freeway? What's the posted speed limit? All these things. Tells you whether it's required or not. Use requirement tables. Placement distances. Yes, I heard it. 61911. Once you decide which vehicle you need, you come to this table, well, these two tables actually. These two tables to figure out actual placement. Minimum and maximum values are given, but the maximum should be used to keep it within sight of the work. The minimum distance is the roll-ahead distance based on manufacturer's recommendations. And again, nothing, nobody, no equipment, nothing should be in the roll-ahead area. Because if an errant, obviously, if an errant vehicle gets off in there and hits something, we don't want it to hit you too. Channelizing devices. Spacing is given on table 619-3B in the standard specs. Transverse devices. Every 800 feet, typically, because I know you've all been in work zones, you're driving and all of a sudden you realize, am I in the right lane? Am I in the one that's closed? That's what this is for. 800 feet. And again, it's given right here how far they should be. And that's a really good picture of transverse devices. Keep everybody going in the lane that they ought to be in. That's the name of the game here. This is another example from that pamphlet that I showed you, the quality guidelines from ATSSA. Again, it's a great book. Temporary pavement markings. Short-term pavement markings on milled pavement surfaces and intermediate paved surface. That's what's being shown here. Temporary pavement markings, up to 14 days. Material certs on request. Interim pavement markings, 1 season with a max of a year. And the certs are required. There we go. Pavement markings that are changed need to be covered well. Not the best. Not the worst I've seen, but it's definitely not the best. Should be covered completely. This one's pretty good. Non-reflectorized black tape. Shouldn't allow paint. This one, they don't like it. Bad weather, nighttime. Somebody could get confused there. Pavement condition. What they're talking about here is putting a shim at that bump and making sure, again, no debris and stuff like that's going to kick up, but a shim at the bump. Advanced warning. Bump condition is to be marked by a channelizing device with the flashing low-intensity warning light. Very important. And obviously, to let them know what's coming. Some other hazards. Groove pavement. This slide looks familiar. That's us. Groove pavement and bump signs are warranted. Groove pavement sign comes first, and then the bump sign. Okay? And then you can see we don't have a VMS there, but we do have the barrels actually at the bump with the lights. Clear zone. Areas of roadside border areas which are essentially without hazard. So maybe get a little bit farther off the road. We're talking about here, safe distance from the edge of the traffic lane, 30 feet. Typically 20 feet on a low-speed roadway. So if you've got equipment, signs, whatever, get it off get it off as far as you can. Farther the better. Here's some sign storage. That's not good. We see it all the time, but it's really not the best. Here again, get it off if we can. Get it off the shoulder. There's room. And this is not that great. Put it on the other side of the sidewalk so that nobody kicks it, trips over it, whatever, on their on the sidewalk path. Flagging. Flagging signs are only to be used when a flagger is actually present. How often have you driven down the road and seen a flagger sign set up and there's nobody standing there? You just lose credibility so fast. I mean, I drive down, I see the sign, I slow down. I don't see a flagger, I speed up, and then a half a mile ahead, there's a flagger standing in the middle of the road. You know, you gotta keep it real time. You've gotta keep it consistent. Again, these are the signs that we're going to use for that. Flag trees, minimum 8 feet, 3 red flags, halfway between the flagger and the work. Flagging attire. They need to be bright and shiny. You know, I drive by all the time. I mean, it looks like they just crawled out of an excavation. You know, I know it's a badge of honor to have a lovely vest that you've worn for the last 5 years and your hard hat's all covered with spunk and, you know, you've worked hard and you've earned that. But darn it, it's a flagger. They have the most important job. They're trying to protect you. They're trying to protect the contractor's employees. They're trying to protect the traveling public. There's a lot of responsibility here. They're usually the least, you know, paid people on the payroll. It's usually the person that's only been on the job a week or the trainee or something, and they get put out here. They have a lot of responsibility, and they need to look like they belong there, and they need to look like they should command respect. They're trying to keep us safe. So here's the skills. Stopping. We do use the stop slow paddle. Red flags are strictly AOBE. Releasing traffic with a flag, with a stop slow paddle, slowing traffic. Be alert. They need to be firm, they need to be concise, but they need to be respectful. You know, you can't have them slamming a flag or a paddle down on somebody's hood. However, they need to be firm. You need to be out there. You need to stop traffic. And they don't need to be talking to you or to their fellow contractor employees or leaning up against a box beam or talking on a phone or something. They need to be doing their job. It's an important one. Signs must be in place prior to the start of the flagging operation. And again, these are the signs. Road work ahead, 1 lane ahead, there's the flagger. There's the actual flagger. And there it is, yes, the flagger tree. Something else, again, that we do here is, depending on the nature of the work and where it is to sometimes put a stack of, say, 3 cones right on center line, just as a forewarning, you know, that they're coming if you're on a curb or if you're on a hill or something like that. Not a bad idea. We do it here quite a bit. Again, must be in place prior to the start of the work, and only when a flagger is actually there. And obviously, they must be removed or covered when the flaggers are no longer directing traffic. Flagging procedure, again, respectful. They need to remain, engaged. They need to watch what's coming. They need to stand off, not in the middle of the road, not on the center line. They need to be on the shoulder, on the edge line. They need to be facing traffic. They need to know what's coming. Position on the right side of the road. Here it does say they may approach the center after traffic has stopped, which is good. You walk out to the center, you see what's going on, you check with your other end of the work, see if we can let people go yet. And they are to move right back to the side of the road once they've directed traffic to proceed. And they need to have an escape route. If somebody comes wheeling through here that's not paying attention, they need a place to go. Over that bridge rail or somewhere. They need yeah, right. What's on the other side of that? But they need to have a place to go. So here's a couple of no, we don't like it pictures. So they have their back to traffic, right? They have no idea what's coming at them. They're in the middle of the road. This here, are they flagging? Who knows? We don't know. Pedestrians. We need to keep an eye on them too. We need to make sure they're safe, not just people in vehicles, but everybody. So pedestrians, bikes, things like that. We need to provide them with a continuous safe place to go. You can see here, we've got that sidewalk closed, and up here we've got it closer, and it does show that there is a detour for them to use. So this is strictly for work activity going on here, but we need to give them a place to go to. ADA compliance, I think Tom probably talked about this earlier. Again, if we don't need to create a sidewalk where there wasn't one before, but if there was one and we've taken it out, we need to accommodate them somehow, right here. ADA compliance to pre-construction conditions. So we need to give them something. If they had a sidewalk before, we need to give them something to walk on again. Excuse me. Last component of a work zone is a termination area. This is bringing people back, post-work, bringing people back. Now I want to talk just a little bit about construction incident reporting. Again, that's part of what I do. We had a meeting last week. It was a webinar last week with statewide, my construction safety coordinators statewide, and these are some of the figures that came up from that presentation. A woman in main office, Melanie Malema, she compiles all this information, and this is the data from 2000. Well, this particular screen is from 2013 to 19, but these are the number of incidents that happened during those years, and incidents would be pretty much everything. I mean, that's, could be an MVA, could be a contractor, smashing their foot. It could be anything. So these are the numbers. I don't know. We had a good year, and then they went up, and then they went down, and now they're back up again. So in 2019, what's that? This is just construction. Yeah. Yeah, maintenance does their reporting on a whole other system. Workplace intrusions. Oh my goodness. Is there anybody in here from Region 11? Holy cow. Yeah, and again, workplace intrusion. This is somebody encroaches in our work area, either with a vehicle or some other form of something. But that's a lot. Workplace violence. Again, this could include, again, Region 8, anyone? Could be anything. Could be somebody driving by and saying something inappropriate to a flagger. Could be the contractor, threatening you or bullying or whatever. But these are total numbers for workplace violence and act or threat of violence. These are just the injuries. For 2019, just construction by region. So this is personal injury, and like you see here, this is DOT, this is the contractor. Hospital transport, on-site, DOT and the contractor, and then this is fatalities. There were 7 fatalities this year. Traveling public. No DOT or construction employee, but there were 7 fatalities, and as we all know, that's 7 too many. And I believe that's my last slide. Oh, I'll talk about that in a second. So I guess the bottom line of everything that I've been talking about here today is something that I tell the TCIs and all the folks here from Region 2 have heard this for my little speech when you come on at the beginning of the season, back when you were TCIs. You have to be vigilant. You have to keep your head on a swivel. People are idiots. They really are. Is there anyone in the room who has not done something stupid behind the wheel of a vehicle? Thank you for no one raising your hand, because I knew that you were lying if you did. They are. People are idiots. We need to be vigilant. We need to not get complacent. You need to keep an eye on yourself. You need to keep an eye on the guy next to you. You need to keep an eye on the contractor, the traveling public. We've all got a huge job to do, a huge job to do. If you see something, say something. That's just one of those great sayings. If you see something that's wrong, mention it to your EIC. Mention it to the contractor. Mention it to somebody. Don't keep it to yourself. Don't keep it a secret. Say something. If you need to go beyond your EIC for whatever reason, call your supervisor. Call a regional office. Call the police. I mean, if there is something that's happening in a work zone, call 911. Call the state police. But don't keep it to yourself. There's absolutely no reason. This is the sheet that I handed out. I made 50 copies. I hope everybody got one. This is, again, I do this with the seasonals when they come on. I give everybody a copy of the most current 619 sheets. These are in the process of being updated. Hopefully by the end of the year, these will all be new. But that's the link to go to find them. Excuse me, standard specs. That was the standard specs. Standard sheets. That's what I just showed you. Work zone traffic control manual. That is also online. It's a lovely thing. I believe Region 1 made this. It's a great, great tool. Lots of information in here. Look at it when you get a minute. That's the manual. There is also a link to the typical applications. That is all of these really great diagrams for all the different work zones. Freeway, rural, short-term, long-term. There's a diagram in here for everything. Lots of fabulous information. Also in the process of being updated. The MUTCD, I didn't bring a copy with that. That's a binder, and the one that I have is old. I look up stuff online now. And of course, we have a supplement to the MUTCD that is also available. The CIR manual and training materials. This is the manual for CIR, and I believe everybody here in Region 2 has gotten a copy, and if you don't, you will, because this one has been updated as of the 1st of this year. So you'll be getting a new copy of this. It's not awful, is it? It's not an awful program. Moderately user-friendly. If you haven't used it, hopefully you won't have to, but if you do, it's not bad. But this is the manual for that. And then the pamphlet that I talked about from ATSSA, this little thing here. This link takes you to their website, and they do other things too. They have lots of other references and things, but this one's pretty great. We like it. And that's all I have.